What is up everyone, and welcome to some more F1 23 My Team career mode, and we're here for round number 9 of season 7 of our Jaguar racing career. It is, as stated in many videos, our final season on F1 23, and the final season we'll be doing My Team for a little while as well, since we'll be switching over to the brand new driver career in F1 24. So yeah, it's pretty imperative that we get some good results here in these final few races if we want basically any chance of getting into the championship fight, because in the season so far we've already had 3 DNFs, and we've also had a string of results that weren't quite as good as I was hoping for, and you can see that means I'm 21 points off of George Russell in the Drivers' Championship, currently all the way down in 5th in the standings. We're also 3rd in the Constructors' standings, with Charles Leclerc not delivering as strong a season as I would have hoped he would. Obviously he did get that victory in Imola, but still it's not been the best season so far for the Monegasque driver either. Myself obviously having those 3 DNFs to kind of keep myself out of the championship fight as well. I've estimated I've dropped about 60 to 65 points, somewhere in that realm, just from the simple fact of the unreliability. So yeah, hopefully we can have a good race here today in Spain. Last time out in Monaco, if you haven't watched that video yet, definitely would recommend going and watching it. I thought I was pretty dead set for a victory there. You know, we qualified on the front row, we took the lead off of the start, and somehow I lost 3 positions, which I don't really understand still how that happened. My tyres were just overheating so much on the exact same car setup that I won the race on last year. It just didn't click for me this time. So yeah, we ended up finishing 4th there. So I'm hoping that we can fight back a little bit today in the Spanish Grand Prix. I actually had what I felt was really good pace on the medium tyres. You'll look at this and go, you're not even in the top 14. Look at most of the fact that most of these guys did soft compound runs. That's part of the reason why. Also, as always, we did our fastest laps quite early on in the session as well. But I did about a 1:11.6 or something like that on the mediums during my race strategy program. So I was pretty happy with the performance that I was showing on the medium tyres. And yeah, hopefully we can give a good account of ourselves in qualifying now as a result of that. We make our way into Q1. We're on a fresh set of soft compound tyres, and we're rounding the final corner now. We'll see what kind of time we can do on our first lap of the competitive sessions of the weekend. It's a 1:09.6, and that is good enough for the fastest time of the session so far. We'll see where it leaves us come the end of the session, whether we can improve on that any as well. We actually were fast enough to be P1, even though we weren't improving on our final lap. You can see that we barely don't improve by about a 1/10 of a second. It's a 1:09.7. But it's still good enough for P1, and will see us through to Q2 quite comfortably, and hopefully we can continue putting up that level of performance for the entire qualifying session. So yeah, there we go. We made it through. Perez and Piastri made out the rest of the top 3. Leclerc through in P12, but hopefully he'll be able to get a good result in Q2 to get through to Q3. And then knocked out here was Stroll, Hauger, Pourchaire, Joe, Vesti and Magnussen. Hauger, definitely the big surprise there. He's currently P3 in the Drivers' Championship, I believe, just behind his teammate of Logan Sargent, who has made it through to Q2. So yeah, I think the Norwegian driver will be very disappointed with that, as he would have wanted a good weekend this weekend to kind of strengthen his championship ambitions. But as we make it into Q2, we do a banker lap on a used set of soft compound tyres now, and it's a 1:10.0. So was good enough for the fastest lap of the session, but I would imagine that some people will actually beat this time, and we will have to improve a little bit over our initial banker lap to be able to get the fastest time in the session. In fact, it actually was very close to Albon's time and was almost good enough for P1 in itself, but we did improve by 7/10 on a fresh set of soft compound tyres, which sees us through to Q3 in P1, and yes, 7/10 faster than the nearest car, so that bodes well. So far, the qualifying sessions have boded pretty well for what's going to happen in Q3 and in the race as well. As knocked out here, De Vries, Sargent, Leclerc, Fittipaldi, Gasly and Tsunoda. Sargent and Leclerc, probably the most disappointing names in that drop zone this time. Obviously Sargent P2 in the Drivers' Championship, just 10 points behind George Russell. I'm sure that he would have wanted a good weekend here today, and sure, he can still get some good points if he can get himself into the points, but it will be difficult. And then obviously Leclerc as well. I just want him to make Q3 again, man. Is that so much to ask? Anyway, we're in Q3, and here we are on a used set of soft compound tyres once again, doing a 109.8 to kick things off. And you can see Ocon has done a 109.2 on a fresh set of soft compound tyres, assumedly. So that is going to be the benchmark here. We've not done a lap time faster than that. As we make our way onto our final flying lap on a fresh set of soft compound tyres, you can see the lap time was about good enough to get us into the 109.2s there or thereabouts. So this is actually, I think, going to be pretty close between myself and Esteban Ocon. But fortunately, the good thing is, because I'm on a fresh set of soft compound tyres, I'm finding all my improvement towards the end of the lap when the used tyres really started to go off on my banker lap. So we end up improving by over 0.8 of a second. It's a 109.0, and that is going to be pole position. So I am very, very happy with that. And hopefully we'll be able to fight for the win tomorrow.
With qualifying finished, it's time to remind ourselves of our top three: Robinson, Ocon and Lando Norris. Well, that wraps up qualifying, but don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow as we head into the Grand Prix.
So we beat out Esteban Ocon by 0.2 of a second there to grab pole position. George Russell, the championship leader, only got P5, so potentially another low-scoring weekend for him after his DNF in Monaco as well. And it's the two Mercedes in a Red Bull sandwich rounding out the rest of the top 5. So now we will see what we can do as we make our way into the Spanish Grand Prix.
Max Verstappen's first win for Red Bull on debut here. One of the great dramatic days in Formula One after the clash on the first lap of Hamilton and Rosberg. The entire crowd at turn 7 on their feet, cheering. An extraordinary race. It's always a treat to come back here for the Spanish Grand Prix. The circuit of Barcelona-Catalunya runs to 2.9 miles. It's a heady mix of high and low speed corners. Look out for the high downforce arc of turn 3, the 2 DRS zones, and the chicane at turns 14 and 15. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Robinson lines up on pole position, and it's Esteban Ocon in P2. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Norris, Albon, Russell, Perez, Liam Lawson, Oscar Piastri, Verstappen, De Vries, Leclerc, Fittipaldi, Gasly, Tsunoda, Stroll, Hauger, Teo Porcher, Joe, Doohan, Vesti, Magnussen, and Logan Sargent. Now, it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track. A warm welcome to Natalie Pinkham, who is beside me in the commentary box today. Now, can I get your take on Max Verstappen? Joined once again by Anthony Davidson in the commentary box. And they've suffered a grid penalty due to taking a new engine. It could mean a tough race in store.
But on the bright side, at least those fresh components can help them maintain the power they need to come through the pack. I expect to see them take a much more aggressive approach today to make up for that compromised start.
Okay, we've got that relief of having points on the board finally, so let's keep that form up and get another top 10 finish today, please.
I think the aim here reasonably has to be the victory, especially if you take into account what happened in Spain last season. If you didn't watch that race, then I'll fill you in quickly. We were battling, I don't remember who it was we were battling with. I think it was Lando Norris, if I remember correctly. We were battling him for a lot of the beginning part of the race. And yeah, then I suffered a mechanical failure, and it was a real shame because I definitely felt like I had the pace that day to compete for the victory as well. But yeah, for one reason or another, it just didn't really seem to work out for me. So yeah, as we make our way lining up on the grid, I'm hoping that we can redeem ourselves a little bit. If we can have a decent sort of pace at the beginning of the stint with the medium tyres, that would be ideal. Most of these guys obviously going on the soft compound tyres, so they're going to have maybe a bit more pace than me, but as long as I can kind of stay with them, I'm hoping towards the end of the stint I'll be able to start catching them again, and yeah, hopefully we will be able to get them as the lights come on and the lights go out. And we've had a decent getaway compared to Esteban Ocon. I think we'll probably be able to hold the lead off the start here, but I mean, he's staying right with us, you can see. And I think Norris is looking for a move potentially as well. Ocon to the inside, couldn't quite get the overtake done. Into turn 1, we cover him off, and we are going to be leading on the opening lap here in the Spanish Grand Prix, but still another 33 laps of this race as Ocon is diving up my inside once again at turn 4, and he's not letting this one go, you know. Esteban Ocon, obviously, he's I think currently P4 in the Drivers' Championship, behind the 2 Aston Martins and of course his teammate George Russell, who's currently leading it. So him getting a good weekend this weekend, especially when both of the Aston Martins are starting outside of the top 10, he has a real opportunity to get himself sort of really stuck into this championship fight. But then, of course, so do I, as someone who's just behind Ocon, I believe 4 points behind Esteban Ocon as things stand at the moment. So yeah, we have an opportunity to overtake him potentially in the Drivers' Championship, and hopefully close the gap to the Aston Martins. To be fair, actually, with where they're scoring at the moment, and if we can get 25 points here today, we'll overtake both of them as well. It's just George Russell that we still have left to fight if he maintains this P5 that he's currently running in. As Ocon actually does get the move done down into turn 1. He seemed to have a lot more straight line speed than me on this occasion. So yeah, not too concerned about this at the moment, because I think once the DRS gets enabled, we should be able to just kind of drag along with him, and yeah, then hopefully we'll be able to sort of make our way back past him as his soft compound tyres start to go off again. But that said, he did do 8/10 faster than me on that lap. So we're going to need to pick the pace up a little bit if we want to stay with the French driver in the Red Bull. And as we make our way through lap 3, you can see he's actually starting to dump me outside of his DRS range. And I actually didn't get the DRS in that DRS zone there. And we're not going to get it down the main straight either by the looks of things. So we could suddenly be in real trouble here as Lance Stroll retires from the session. We'll see what happens with him in just a moment. But there goes Lando Norris with the DRS, making his way up into P2. And the rate I'm going to be booted off the podium here. Now, like I said, it's not absolutely terrible to get overtaken by 1 or 2 cars, because I definitely think I will be able to get back past them. But the further that Esteban Ocon breaks away, the more unlikely the victory becomes for me today. So here's Lance Stroll, just a simple engine failure as you'd expect, and then he destroys a braking board for good measure there as well. So yeah, we make our way back on board with myself, and we actually managed to stay with Lando Norris. Unlike with Esteban Ocon, we did not get dumped out of Lando Norris's DRS range, and we're able to go around the outside through turns 1 and 2 and make our way up into P2 once again. But Lando Norris, I imagine, will start to come straight back at us in the DRS zone on the pit straight into lap 6. And yeah, he goes to the inside. He's going to try and make his way up the inside, and when they go to contact there, maybe I should have given more room to him, I don't know. But yeah, Lando Norris has to settle for P3 still at the moment. We stay in P2, and well, actually nothing happened for a few more laps after that, as we just kind of were holding him behind, not really coming under much pressure. I felt like I actually had pretty good pace here. The problem is that I didn't have good enough pace to close up to Esteban Ocon. It felt like every single time it was like, you know, I make a few steps forward and then it's a few steps back afterwards in terms of catching Esteban Ocon. You know, I'd close the gap by a few tenths and then I'd make a mistake and lose a few tenths, and it was just like that back and forth the whole time. I really felt like I was struggling to get any kind of rhythm going here at the Spanish Grand Prix, and so you can see the gap to Ocon was just staying consistent this whole time. I think maybe we've taken the best out of the medium tyres as well now, so the pace is going to be quite similar between the softs and the mediums once again. We'll see when these guys end up pitting, but for me, lap 13, I'm deciding to come in. You might think that this is a little bit early, but supposedly it's not that much of a risk to switch onto the hard compound tyres from here to the end of the race. So that is what we're going to be doing, and hopefully in the 3 laps between now and when the rest of the cars that are on mediums especially, I think I was initially supposed to pit on about lap 17 or 18, but I don't know with the soft compound runners. I imagine it would be sort of you know, maybe lap 15 or something like that. I think that we hopefully will have at least a few laps to try and go for a bit of an undercut here. But unfortunately, we've kind of come out in a really bad position here because we are currently running right behind Liam Lawson and Logan Sargent, and we're going to have to try and get ahead of these guys really quickly. Sargent having a mare at the moment. I don't know what's happened with him, but I'm assuming maybe he got some damage at some point. I don't see how else he would be down all the way in P19. The same with Liam Lawson. I'm pretty sure at one point he was running in P6 if I remember correctly. So yeah, a bad race for these guys. Maybe they had a coming together or something like that, I'm not sure. But either way, I almost came into the back of Liam Lawson's gearbox then as I was coming through turns 7 and 8, but yeah, he just is way too slow for me on these old used soft compound tyres at this point. As we make our way through on the fresh hards, we go for a bit of an audacious move there on Liam Lawson, but ultimately, you know, I just had so much more pace, so much more grip, so much more traction that it was not really a contest. And now we're going to try and get ahead of Logan Sargent as quickly as we can. We will have the DRS on him, of course, so this should be a fairly trivial affair, if I'm not mistaken. And we even got a bit of slipstream here for good measure as well, so we move to the inside of Logan Sargent. Going to be a fairly straightforward overtake, or at least it would have been if Lando Norris wasn't coming out the pits at the same time, but fortunately we managed to find the gap between the two drivers and make our way up into P12, which is currently, I believe, net P2. Obviously Norris was running just behind me on track, and well, he's actually stuck behind Logan Sargent at the moment, which has given me a little bit of a buffer to Lando Norris, and it maybe is going to allow me to undercut Esteban Ocon as well. I imagine if I'd been held up by Norris, maybe that undercut wouldn't happen, because it's quite close between myself and Ocon here at the moment, only about a second or so, and that gap came down again very, very quickly, as Esteban Ocon, I think, is going to go for a move into the lead of the Spanish Grand Prix once again. There he goes. This time I was a little bit more nervous, because I was kind of hoping I'd be able to keep him behind when I'm on the hard compound tyres and he's on the mediums, but obviously I did about a 3-lap undercut on him, which means my tyres are 3 laps older than his, which means effectively our tyres are going to probably wear out at about the same rate, and he's going to have a little bit more performance throughout this entire stint. So I'm going to need to find something quite drastic if I'm going to be able to get back at him, and it's not helping that Alex Albon now is going for a move into P2, and that's held me up by about 5-6 tenths of a second to Esteban Ocon, and the more and more that Alex Albon does that, the more and more I'm going to get held up. We lost more tenths of a second, about 3 or 4 more tenths of a second to Esteban Ocon over the course of the rest of that lap. And Albon going for the move once again down into turn 1. This time we managed to get back past him with a bit more conviction than on the initial time, but again, that's another 5 tenths of a second lost to Esteban Ocon, and this whole time he's just getting further and further away, and I was starting to get really annoyed at this, as this is a retirement. There's a Red Bull retiring from the race, but unfortunately it's not Esteban Ocon, so it's not a position that we'll be inheriting. Instead, it's George Russell getting a second consecutive DNF. He drives through the brake board again this time, but in his defence it was invisible on this occasion, so yeah, kind of hard for him to avoid. And this time I think Albon's got us. He makes the overtake, and he's a lot further ahead of me by the time we get to the braking zone. So that's us down now into P3, and at this rate we're going to fall off the podium. We're going to have to settle for P4 because Lando Norris is right behind me as well, and Esteban Ocon is so far up the road, 6 seconds up the road at the moment, and yeah, I was really just kind of resigning myself to the fact I was probably only getting P3, P4 at this rate, unless we could maybe try and get ahead of Albon. We have at least stayed with him, but yeah, I just felt like I was pushing too hard. But here we go, a mechanical problem for Esteban Ocon, and maybe, just maybe, that will be enough to get me back in the race. You can see over the next couple of laps we've already caught him by about 2 seconds. As soon as I found out that information, it lit a fire under me. Step 1, of course, was getting past Alex Albon once again, and we managed to do that within a couple of laps of finding that out. I kind of started ironing out the mistakes that I was getting from overdriving the car a little bit to try and stay with Albon and try and close the gap to Ocon. Once I found out he had a mechanical problem, I was able to set into a bit of a rhythm, and well, you can see by lap 30 we were within his DRS range. Once again, we didn't get DRS on the pit straight on this occasion, and he is kind of fast in a straight line, but it's the corners that Esteban Ocon is really lacking in today. So assumedly it's some sort of aerodynamic problem. Maybe you know, he's got some damage on the floor or something like that that's kind of hindering his performance. But what that means is that we are closing him down now quite quickly, and I would imagine by the time we get to the DRS zone at the end of lap 30 we'll be able to look for a move on the French driver and hopefully try and get back into P1, where we started this race, where we've not really been running in this race for much of the race at all. Only at the very start of the race on lap 1, and after Esteban Ocon pitted for a couple laps, we'll be leading the race. And well, it's not about where you start, it's not about where you are on lap 30, it's about where you are when you cross the finish line, and right now I'm looking really good to win this race. You can see how slow Esteban Ocon is. We've caught him by 1 second over the course of this lap, and the DRS obviously in the middle of the lap is not super powerful because it's not a super long straight, but this straight on the other hand is pretty long, and I think we are going to have a really good chance to get past Esteban Ocon, closing the gap, pulling to the inside, and it's going to be a complete non-contest between myself and Ocon, although he is deploying a lot of battery to try and stay with me. But up the inside, we're going to take the position off of Esteban Ocon and move into the lead of the Spanish Grand Prix.
Nice move. Keep
There's
going.
only, you know, a little over 2 laps left to go here in the race, so we have a really good opportunity to hold this one and hold on to the victory and get our first ever win at the Spanish Grand Prix in this career mode as well. You know, we've raced here on, I think this is our 6th occasion racing here, but for one reason or another I've just never had a victory here. But I think that's about to change. The gap behind Alex Albon now is 2.5 seconds. So I don't think he's going to have much of an answer to my pace on this final lap. Is he closing me down a little bit? Yes, but he will need a lot more laps than he's got to try and make this gap and make this overtake. So I think we have a really good opportunity to take the victory here. Now we're just cruising to the finish line, making sure that we don't make any silly mistakes, and everything should be absolutely fine to grab the victory as we round the final corner, and we are going to take the checkered flag first. It's P1 here in the Spanish Grand Prix, and finally we get a victory at this circuit. Very, very happy with that. Hopefully we can continue a bit of a race-winning form now. Only our 2nd victory of the season in 9 races as well. So driver of the day for our efforts as well. I feel like we did deserve that because we raced very hard to get back into this position.
A real team effort then, which has paid off in spades. A great victory here at the Spanish Grand Prix. So, Natalie, what made the difference out there today?
I feel consistency was probably the key today. There's being quick, and then there's being quick lap after lap after lap. If you can do that, you can capitalise on other people's errors without making many of your own. And that's an approach that can push you a long way up the field.
Well, what a thrilling end to an incredible Grand Prix weekend. Our top 3 finishers should be incredibly happy with what they were able to achieve out there today.
Well, it was a good race for us in the end there. I really thought for a long time that was not going to go anywhere near as well as it did. So I was very happy when eventually it was me taking the trophy here. It's 2 Mercedes on the podium. It's Albon and then Norris in P3. Ocon ended up finishing P4. He was quite fortunate. He benefited from a bit of a gap back to Piastri in P5 where he just kind of settled in there. But yeah, Norris and Albon, maybe they're getting involved in the championship fight as well now.
So let's have a quick look at how the drivers' standings have changed. Robinson takes over the lead of the Drivers' Championship. Let's focus on Driver of the Day, Natalie Pinkham. Come on, who do you pick?
I have to give it to Robinson.
It's time to check out the Constructors' standings. Red Bull pull further ahead in the standings. Been an absolutely wild weekend of Formula One action. Can't wait to see what's next.
I mean, this is just absolutely mental at the moment, this championship fight, in both the drivers and the constructors, quite frankly, because there's 50 points separating the top 10 drivers in the drivers' standings right now. All the way back from, I can't believe I'm saying this, but me in P1, which at the start of the weekend, if you'd have told me, you know, you're 21 points behind George Russell, and you know, Ocon is also starting on the front row alongside you, Russell's starting in the top 10, yes, the Aston Martins are starting outside the top 10, but still, I would have said there's absolutely no way I'm taking the lead of the Drivers' Championship here today. But somehow George Russell has had his 2nd DNF in a row. The championship leader, having 2 DNFs in a row, has knocked him off the top spot. So I guess now he's starting to get a taste of how I'm feeling this season. But maybe I can't complain too much. 3 DNFs, we're still leading the World Championship, and it's only our 2nd victory of the season. So yeah, just the consistency really working out for us right now, it seems. And hopefully we will be able to continue having some good consistent results as the season goes on. But yeah, there's 10 drivers involved in the Drivers' Championship fight right now. I would say, you know, going all the way back to Piastri, I'd say he's still probably in with a shot as well, 51 points behind. Maybe even some of the people who are outside of the top 10 can still get themselves involved in the championship fight as well. But you know, it's me, it's Russell, it's Ocon, it's Hauger, it's Sargent, it's who else is involved? You know, Vesti, Norris, Leclerc maybe, Piastri maybe, Albon maybe, you know, all of these drivers that are just delivering decent results week in, week out. That's all it takes now, really. You just have to be consistent. Consistency is the key here in Season 7. If you could be a consistent points feature, even if it's only P5 or P6 or something like that, you know, just plodding along, picking up sort of 10 points every race or so. I mean, look, I'm on 106 points after 9 races. What is that? What is that an average of? An average of 12 points per race. So that's an average of finishing P4 every race. It's not exactly like I'm I'm you know, delivering consistent podium level performances or anything like that. You just have to be there. You just have to be delivering good points. And because it's such an unpredictable grid, it really doesn't matter if you're not, you know, a point. If you think about last season as well, even Oscar Piastri ended up grabbing P2 in the Drivers' Championship, and he didn't win a race all season. And to be honest with you, if I'd have had a slightly less dominant season, Oscar Piastri could have been in a conversation for a championship fight that season as well. So, you know, it really was just a kind of winner-takes-all scenario last season. But this time, I've kind of dropped back into that pack as well. I'm nowhere near as consistent as I was, and so it's making for an incredibly entertaining championship fight. The drivers, like I said, 10 drivers within 50 points, the constructors as well, 4 teams within 50 points of one another after 9 races as well. It really is going to be anyone's game for these next 14 races to see who is going to claim the ultimate prize in Abu Dhabi. But that is going to be it for this video, so if you enjoyed, please make sure you like and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.